Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale trusts and also Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so quick look at Bitcoin here. As you guys can see, we did have a golden cross yesterday, as a matter of fact. However, I do want to point something out here. It potentially may not be the bottom, and the reason I say this is you guys can see we had a golden cross, then we popped above it, looked like we were going to go up, and then we got rejected, and now price on the 4-hourly time frame once again is still below the EMAs. Last time we saw this, unfortunately, it did lead to a sell-off. You can kind of see we had a rip here and then a dump. Well, we also had something back here, a rip, kind of tested this line and then pushed pretty far down. So as far as Bitcoin's concerned, this may not be the bottom. I'll have to keep a close eye on it. It's also possible this could be a fake out. Okay, so this thing could go up even though it's sitting below the EMAs. It really just kind of depends. But as of right now, it's looking a little bit less certain than it was with the golden cross. So now let's take a look at the BTC dominance. So again, when it comes to the altcoin related grayscale trusts or anything altcoin related, okay, so any Ethereum related dividend ETFs, things like MSTY and Coney or Coinbase and MicroStrategy, or any of these grayscale altcoin trusts, the Bitcoin dominance selling off and giving rise to a massive alt season will ultimately be bullish for the altcoins, okay? Or anything altcoin related, doesn't matter. It could be like HZEN, it could be PhilG, GBAT, G-Link, GSOL, Mana, Zcash. Those are all altcoin related grayscale trusts. So as you guys can see, we did indeed get our first candle here that does appear to be pulling below. Actually, I suppose if I were to, well, it depends on exactly how I measure this bottom line here, but you guys can see there is pretty close to as perfect as possible with the touch points here in terms of the bottom of the wedge, and it does appear that we do have a candle now trying to push below it. The important thing is, I've said once before, when it comes to the alt season, was we need to see a red candle close below at least these first two EMAs, below this resistance zone and outside of the wedge, okay, and subsequent red candles following in order to lead to a massive, monstrous alt season. So let's get into the grayscale trust. Okay, so on a bird's eye view, you guys can see that we have mostly a flat day, not big green, but not small green or big red, right? So there was a couple here that moved up a lot. So you have PhilG, GLIV, and that's pretty much it. And GXLM and GBAT were down quite a bit. So LTCN, pretty much what we're looking at here is potentially a bottom forming. So you guys can see we had a hammer candle, and then we kind of had these candle body closes right here, kind of sitting all along this red EMA. Now we have another hammer candle, which if CPI comes out bullish tomorrow below expectations, okay, the headline expectation is 3.1%. So if it comes in at 3.1% or lower for headline, and core comes in at expectations, which I believe is the same as last month or lower than that, that could have some serious bullish effect on both crypto and these grayscale trusts. So LTCN therefore could just pump straight up to this resistance. That's a possibility. So pretty much we're looking at the same supports that we were looking at before. So roughly about 13.20 to 15. And then you have kind of this $17 to $18 range. Resistance 24 to 27, and then the swing high up here at 54. Above and beyond that, it's 75, 100 to 135, and then roughly about 300 to 400 before reaching all-time highs at $510. So let's go ahead and do the measured move from here to the top of this resistance, which would be 35% at the top of the first major swing move, and then the second swing move at 54 would be 173%. Now, if for whatever reason the market doesn't like CPI tomorrow and we get some kind of sell-off, that's always a possibility. Likely it could potentially just come down here to this support, which honestly, I mean, wouldn't really even be all that bad, truthfully, because the lows for LTCN way back here was at like $2. So that's actually quite a small dip as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you were over leveraged in this position, then yeah, you might be sweating some bullets. I mean, everybody has to manage their own risk, right? So support down here, roughly about 13 to 15-ish, somewhere up there to the swing high is 297% move. So BCHG, very similar to LTCN. So we're kind of sitting at these lows here. Okay, this is looking like it might form into a hammer candle. So that's always a bullish sign. So same thing as before, 680 to 760 on support, $10 to roughly about 1280 at your first resistance. I'd be looking for this up here though if I was going to do a swing move on BCHG. So 18 to 20 and then 23.5 respectively. Now, if you're looking for all-time high moves, I'm actually going to post so 45%, 120 and 165 respectively. Give me a second and I'll get to the video that I was going to tell you guys about in a minute. So 77% from support. Their second move would be 174%, and then third move would be 227%. So what I was going to say is I'm actually going to go ahead and do an updated Fibonacci max profit targets for you guys on these grayscale trusts tomorrow. So you will get the chance to see the updated version and where the next major swing highs could be. So do keep a lookout for that. If you guys are looking for more, like you're not really looking to take profits in the immediate short term, you want to kind of wait till you get like a 5, 10, 20x later down the road towards the more bullish part of the crypto bull run, which would theoretically be between the end of this year to the end of next year, then that would be the video for you. So HZEN still within this falling wedge, same as before. So we got to get above the EMAs. We are bouncing off support, so that's always a good sign. So support 380 to 420 here. Top of the wedge is $6. So if we get a break basically above $6 and a close above this line up here, it should be pretty bullish. We should be heading into this resistance right here. So resistance $7 to $8, and then the swing high up here roughly about 10.5. So from the current price to the top of this resistance, 71%, and then to the swing high about 122%. I would just round it up and say 125% because it could just easily go above that. That's possible. So from support to the resistance high up here, 98%, and the swing high, 155% move. ETCG, once again, kind of expecting this one to come down to support because we had this kind of candle poking its head down below this line here. And of course, this candle was closing lower than a lot of these previous candle lows. So that's an early bearish indicator, but it could still stay within the channel. Okay, it's possible, but me personally, I would be looking for this zone down here. So about 870 to 990. And then the channel, of course, is between 11 to 13. I'll just do a measurement on basically all the way up here at the highs. So you have a 13 to roughly about 16 on that resistance, and then 1770 to about $20 at closer towards that swing high up there. So if I measure it from where it currently sits to the swing high, it's about 70%. And if it gets down into the support, right around the bottom of this wick down here to the swing high would be about 107% move. So ETH, basically back down in support. That's pretty much what we're looking at. So support here is roughly about $25 to $29. Your resistance area here is $40.5 to about $47.5. And so you guys can see we have this humongous cup and handle pattern here. Again, this white line, which lines up almost perfectly with the highs up here, is the target. So from the current price to this swing high up here would be roughly about 62% move. Now, when the spot Ether ETFs do actually get listed, I suspect that this high up here is going to get absolutely destroyed. I don't know exactly how high ETH and ETCG will go, but anything Ethereum related is going to moonshot. It'll probably do something very similar to Bitcoin, I can imagine. So I do expect that resistance to get completely obliterated once we get the listings and they actually start trading. So inverse head and shoulders pattern here. Target for Phil G is $300. The swing high, or the all-time high in this case, is $400. I am still expecting this thing to hit support down here between $37 to $40. That's pretty much what we're looking at right now. So the target for the inverse head and shoulders is 650 in terms of percentage and 900% respectively. Just so you guys do understand the risk here. So if it does pull back into support, which is always possible, it could do that at any point in time. It's not a guarantee. I'm not trying to scare anybody or anything like that. I'm just letting you know that there is some risk here. Okay. So 52% drop would be what happens on Phil G. And again, I picked this zone because you guys can see it was previous resistance and also tested as support. So that seems pretty much right about the likely area it would bottom out if it was to have some kind of big move to the downside. So GBAT is still sitting on support. So once again, support is between 770 to 990. The swing high and all-time high up here is at 32 and a quarter. I'm just going to say 32 for simplicity's sake. If it gets below this support, it could go down here to this previous support at roughly about $4.50 to about 5 and a quarter. That's a possibility. Keep it in mind. There's no guarantee this support has to hold. It could just break through and go to the next level. So 301% move from the current price and down here at this level below to the swing high 600%. So how you guys want to strategize this stuff, that's up to you. I can't tell you what to do. So another inverse head and shoulders pattern, although this one is not playing out like I would want to see it play out. Basically what I would want to see is pretty much almost an immediate move like this. Okay, not something where it goes down, makes this right shoulder and then kind of just flatlines. That, in my opinion, is not a great setup. I would want to see basically an immediate move right off of that right shoulder and then a rip to the upside. So I'll give you guys the target. So the target's $84. The high up here is at 80, but in my opinion, likely it's probably going to come back down to support. So roughly about 12 to 1450. If it doesn't and it breaks out to this target, well, hey, anybody in this position made money. I would happily be wrong if I was in this position and I was wrong and it just went up instead, I'd be happy about that, right? Who wouldn't be happy about that? So from support to the high up here, 497%, we'll just round it off and say 500 and then 525 respectively, all the way up at that target. So G-Link, this thing tried to have a breakout and then it clearly got rejected, as you guys can see right here. It may have another attempt tomorrow if the CPI is bullish. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. But as of right now, the support is 65 to 85 roughly, and the high up there at 220. So from the current price to the high, you'd be looking at about 127%. And then let's say you manage to get your price somewhere in roughly about the middle of this zone here to the high is roughly about 200% move. GSOL, so this thing really does look like it wants to break out. I will say once again, I personally would not buy this one. I think all of these other ones, in my opinion, are a steal compared to this. Reason being is because if there's some kind of black swan or something like that, I mean, you could just see I'm not saying there's going to be a black swan. I don't think there will be, but the drop on this thing could be just ridiculous, as you guys can see. Support I'm looking at is down here between 170 to 202. But on the flip side, if this thing gets a breakout and it does start pushing to all-time highs, just to get to the high is only a 25% move. So you can see the risk reward there is not that great. However, if I were to say do a Fibonacci retracement, a local, not a macro Fibonacci retracement, just a local one from the previous swing high to the previous swing low, you guys can see the first target here would be at $800. Okay. So if I were to then measure it, let's say from the breakout point to the first Fibonacci level, it's still a massive 80% move. It's not like a 10x or anything, but it's a start. It's better than nothing. So that's GSOL as of right now. GXLM, so this one finally has moved down. I suspected it probably would, but I wasn't entirely sure because it was kind of holding this base. But again, this first candle here was lower than these ones, and it's also below this wedge pattern, so I kind of thought maybe it was going to sell off. So once again, this line is the target here, so roughly about $25. If it goes below that, I'll just give you guys the support down here, which is 550 to 1160. I don't think it goes that low, but anything's possible, I suppose. So resistance 53 to 59, and then the swing high up here at 70. So, I mean, the distance between their current price and the target's not really all that significant, so it's actually quite small. It's only about 10%. I wouldn't be worried about a 10% move unless I had 100% of the available capital in this position. So 153% move from the current price to that swing high. And if it goes down to the line, then up to the swing high, assuming you can time the bottom and the top perfectly, it'd be about 180% move. So mana, this one's still trying to bounce off of this support zone. I mean, it's pretty heavily traded. You guys can see a lot of resistance here and a lot of support here. So in theory, this should hold. If it drops below, the next level would be roughly about $10.50. So the swing high here is at 70 still. Just from the current price to the swing high would be roughly about a 250% move. If it gets lower than this, down to that line down there, all the way up to the swing high is going to be about 544%. Okay, so Zcash, so we did kind of have a reversal here. Again, it's still not above resistance, so I'm not super bullish on this, but it did get above the trend line. Of course, we still have 2 days to confirm that, but once it does, theoretically, it should go, if it truly is bullish and is going to break out, it should go above the EMAs and the resistance, and this should flip into support. So support below this, you basically be looking at 320. I could tell you guys all the other supports, so roughly about 280 down to 160. I don't think it goes that low, but anything's possible, I suppose. So current zone, roughly about 440, 430, 440, somewhere in there, to $5. The resistance above head 8 to about 960, and then 10 and a quarter at that high up there. So just measured from the as you guys can see, the current level, which could flip into support any day now, to the high up here, 115% move. However, if it goes lower and comes back down and tests this $3 level, then the move becomes much greater at 220%. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.